Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first of our now online lecture PowerPoints. I guess the good advantage about this is that you can push pause whenever you need to take the notes down. I expect you still to take notes. I will be giving you a quiz on this probably later this week, most likely Wednesday. So please make sure you take good notes and pay attention, all right? Now, having said that, let's get started. To make things feel more at home, give you a sense of familiarity, let's try a couple things. Sarah, stop drawing. Abdi, be quiet, turn around, sit down. Matthew, where's your pencil? What do you mean you don't know? Where's your pencil? I don't care if you brought it. Go to the other classroom and get your pencil so we can get started. There. Now that we have established our classroom ambiance, just like old times, we're going to get started. Like I said in the post that I made on Seesaw, this is going to be out of order. I know we're doing the 10s and the 20s, but I wanted to do something fun. So hey, what better way to have fun than the assassination of a bad guy? So let's get started. We are going to be talking about the Romanovs. The Romanovs ruled Russia for nearly over 300 years. Okay? It is insane when you stop and think about that America hasn't even been a country for 240 years, and this one family was in charge for a little over 3 centuries, all the way up until World War I. All right. Just some quick background information. You do not have to write this part down. This is just for, background information. One of the most famous Romanovs who got the whole thing started, his name was Ivan. His nickname was Ivan the Terrible. He's the first person to use the word Tsar. He's going to marry into the Romanov family. He's going to marry again, Tsar comes from the old Russian word Caesar. So the Russians are trying to make themselves out to be kind of a new Roman Empire, right? He's the one who's going to defeat the Mongols, thank Mulan, and he's going to be the one who expands Russia kind of into the size that it is today, okay? And ironically enough, this great warrior, he died not on the battlefield, he died playing chess. He had a heart attack in 1584. Another quick famous one, again, you don't have to write this down, his name was Peter the Great. He's going to be the one who basically brings Russia out of the Dark Ages, if you will, into the modern times. Modern being, out of agrarian into a more industrial time. I'm going to give them writing. He's going to modernize the Navy. He's going to be the first Tsar to actually travel to Europe. He's basically going to take this backwater hillbilly nation and turn them into kind of a modern nation, all right? So we are, however, interested in the final Romanov, Nicholas Romanov, the last Tsar. He had a good-sized family, okay? He had 4 daughters and 1 son. You can see photos of him here and there. Remember, it's Russia. They're dressing for winter. They've got all kinds of crazy fur coats. Here's a picture of all the children when they were younger. Anastasia was the youngest, and she is right here. She's the one who all the stories are about, but the main focus that we're going to focus on right here will be Alexei. Alexei is the son. He's going to be kind of indirectly responsible for the entire fall of the Russian family because of his medical problem, and the death of Nicholas and the whole family is going to be kind of indirectly because of him. Not his fault, but just because of him. And everything we learned this year about Russia coming to power, the communists taking over the entire country, and the Cold War, and World War II, Stalin, and the fall of the Russians, and the Cold War, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. Everything we have learned about this year is because a Band-Aid would not stop this boy right here from bleeding. Yeah, seriously. So let's get started. So Nicholas was actually a pretty cool guy. He was born in 1868. He died in 1918, July 17th. Spoiler alert, his wife died July 17th. His 4 daughters died July 17th. His son died July 17th. They all died July 17th, 1918, okay? He was well educated. He spoke several different languages. He traveled to Europe and Japan. However, he might have been, kind of what we would call today an egghead. He loved reading. He's a book guy. He's kind of a book nerd. very well-educated man, but just because you're well-educated does not mean that you are a good leader, okay? Some of the most famous leaders in history have been just average intelligence people. Having said that, his leadership style left so much to be desired. It was kind of crazy. His first priority was always his family. No, I'm not saying your first priority shouldn't be your family, but when you're the king, you have more than just one family to worry about. You have millions of families to worry about. Unfortunately for him, he also happened to be the king during World War I. And this is going to cause even more problems. So, very educated man, just not a good leader. And again, you can pause this video anytime you want to write these things down. Summarize them how you wish. His wife, Alexandra, she was from Germany. She was a Prussian from Hesse. And she was the granddaughter of Queen Victoria, okay? Queen Victoria had a huge family. In our next PowerPoint, I will show you how huge her family was. It was ridiculous. Queen Elizabeth right now, Queen Elizabeth II, is 92, 93, somewhere in there. She's really, really old. But before her, the queen who served the longest was Queen Victoria. This is not Queen Victoria, okay? This is her granddaughter. But regardless of that fact, Queen Victoria had dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of grandchildren. And they married everywhere. And we'll talk about that, like I said, next time. Anyways, Alexandria was extremely religious. In fact, she almost did not marry Nicholas because they were of different denominations. He was Russian Orthodox, she was Lutheran. So they actually had to wait until her mother died because her mother wouldn't approve the wedding, okay? Her mother was not a big fan of Nicholas simply because he was a different Christian religion. So that's how crazy things were back then. Anyways, they're going to get married in 1894, and then after the coronation ceremony, coronation meaning when he goes from being prince to becoming king, and she becomes from princess to becoming queen. Fun fact, only in a Mr. Fitch class will you hear about this, not in any freaking textbook. While everybody in the country was partying and celebrating the royal marriage, a riot broke out in many small towns surrounding the city, Moscow, where they were married. And the reason why is because there were rumors running all across town that they had ran out of alcohol. So thousands of people died in riots because people thought they ran out of beer. In case you think this is crazy, just remember within the last month how many people have been going insane over toilet paper in this country, okay? Just tossing that out there. However, after the marriage, everything kind of started to go downhill for him. He lost the Japanese-Russian War. This is an embarrassing thing, okay? This is like if America went to war with Mexico and Mexico beat us. Yeah, there was no reason that little teeny tiny island of Japan should be able to defeat Russia. It is huge. Japan is small. Russia has thousands of resources at their disposal. And yet the Japanese still found a way to freaking beat them. It was an embarrassment. Again, he's not a good military leader. The other problem is taxes. As we have talked about a million times, you guys, you can upset the nobility or you can upset the peasants, but you cannot upset them both. Right now, we're just upsetting the peasants, but as we get closer to 1918, he's going to upset them both, and you know what usually happens when that happens, okay? So, civil unrest, you had a lot of peasants protesting the corruption in the government and the nobles, and things just weren't all that great for him, just going to say. Here's another picture of the four daughters, each ranging across different ages, all of them, the oldest being about 10 years older than the youngest. So, and again, here's little Anastasia. She's kind of important to our story later. But after four daughters, a son is finally born. Alexander, or Alexei as he was called for short, the long-awaited heir, the king. He is born. But unfortunately, like I said, he's going to inherit hemophilia. This means one cut and his bleeding just goes on and on and on. It doesn't stop. It doesn't coagulate. All right? So he is going to need special medical attention for most of his life. One scratch, and the kid is like a freaking, geyser, just blood everywhere. So, however, they kept it all hush-hush. They did not want the world or the country to know that the next king could be defeated by, just a little pinprick, okay? Here you can see kind of the family tree of the royal family. Again, all these squares and circles represent male and females. We'll talk more about this next time, I think, when we get to Queen Victoria. But basically, all of this right here is a family tree. It's not a Pokemon ball, Matthew. It represents people who have the hemophilia gene, which travels on the female side. Females can have it, but they can be carriers, but it's not going to affect them. However, they can get, if the mother passes on the gene to the male will have hemophilia. If the mother passes on the gene to the daughter, again, they're a carrier, they have no symptoms. Like, a daughter can have hemophilia, but she won't, if she gets cut, her bleeding will stop like normal. So it's a disease that passes from mother to children, but if it passes from mother to son, it will not be good. But enough science. Let's enter the villain of our story, Grigori Rasputin. How would you like it if your parents hired this guy to be your teacher? Oh my. You think he's scary? Just wait. Many considered Grigori Rasputin to be a holy man. He's seldomly bathed. He was kind of like this John the Baptist kind of guy. He was a wild man. You call him a holy man, but he's more like an unholy man. He was hardcore into the occult. A lot of people believe he had hypnotic powers. And he had power of healing now. Or, exaggerated, right? Maybe demonically. But anyways, Alexei, when he would have hemophilia incidents, Rasputin would be able to help heal the boy and bring the bleeding under control. We don't know how this happened because it was kept quiet, but it seemed to have worked because the mother wanted to keep him around as kind of insurance in case her son ever got poked and cut or wounded, okay? And so much so that she believed that without Rasputin, her son would die. So this creepy guy is all, in her mind, in the queen's mind, all that is keeping her son alive if the worst should happen. And so because this guy has direct access to the royal family, he's speaking to the wife, he's speaking to the husband, he's going to have a lot of influence. He basically becomes like an advisor to the king and queen, which is scary. Here's a real photo of him playing with his crazy, dirty beard. He was actually a villain in the Disney movie Anastasia a few years ago. However, as Rasputin's influence grew, things got more and more crazy, okay? The Tsar exiled him. Like, this created kind of like a huge political scandal, like Watergate kind of scandal, when the other politicians and royal family members in Russia found out that they were getting advice from this crazy guy. He was under a lot of pressure to get rid of Rasputin, okay? Because who wants to take advice from that guy? Seriously. So they exile him away. However, his son got sick again, and his wife starts, nagging on him, bring him back, we need him. And so he does. And so the exiled Rasputin comes back, and he, I guess saves the day or something. Now, the news media at this time published cartoons. Here in this cartoon, you can see Rasputin. He's sitting there looking evil and sinister, like he has all the power. Everyone is sitting around him. Here's the Tsar and Alexandria, the queen, and different members of the Russian royal family. They all look like idiots and buffoons, like they're listening to everything he says. If you know the story of Peter Piper, the Pied Piper when he'd play his flute and the mice would follow him. It's basically what you have here. You have Rasputin playing his flute, and the Tsar Nicholas is dancing to his tune, doing whatever he wants. Here you have a larger-than-life Rasputin, and you have the king and queen sitting on his lap like little children or little puppets, doing whatever he says. So you can see that the press and the newspapers were making fun of this whole situation back in the 19-teens. So, my gosh, look at those eyes. They just stare at you like you turn to the left or turn to the right. Whatever way or direction you kind of move your head, it's like the eyes follow you. It's creepy. Stand on the left or the right side of the monitor, and they follow you. Scary. Rasputin was killed on December 30th, 1916. Okay? And if that was the end of our story, that would be a very sad PowerPoint, but it's not, so don't worry. It's not how he died that is necessarily important. It's how many times they had to kill him to actually make death stick. Okay? However, right before he was killed, Rasputin wrote a letter to the Queen, Alexandra, and this is what he wrote. He told her that if he were ever killed, that the Romanovs and their entire dynasty would be destroyed within 6 months. Ooh, scary. Well, he got killed. These are the men who killed him, okay? You don't need to worry about their names. Don't write their names down. Just know that 4 guys were involved in the assassination. One of them was a member of the royal family. He was the Prince Felix. He's married to the Tsar's niece. Vladimir, he's a politician. Dmitri, he's a cousin of the Tsar. Again, 2 royal family members, a politician, and a doctor. We don't have a photo of him. So, this is how it worked. It's actually quite clever on their part, okay? And we know this because we have this guy's book, okay? So this guy wrote the whole story down. He's a biographer as well as a murderer. Anyway, so Felix tells us that he invited Rasputin to his home because with using the excuse that his wife was sick. Remember, he's a healer. He takes care of Alexei. So he tells Rasputin, hey, my wife is sick. Can you come check her out, make sure she's doing well? And this is his palace. It's a hotel today, a museum, among other things. But so he comes over in the middle of Russia. Remember, this is Russian winter, almost right after Christmas, almost on New Year's Eve. It is freaking cold. So he's wearing a big, huge parka jacket. He's got his boots on. He comes into the room. Felix sends him down to the basement, okay? And there's a dining room down there. And he's got some food and some wine. And he tells Rasputin that his wife is sick, but she's actually talking to another guest right now. And that if he just waits downstairs in this one dining room, his wife will be done talking to her friend shortly, and they will come in and he can treat her. So he's downstairs. He sees that there's food and wine, and it's all poisoned, okay? So he's eating a little bit here and there, and he's drinking, and he doesn't die. Felix walks into the room, sees him eating and drinking, and he burps. Actually, it's quite humorous. He burps. That was the extent of his poisoning here. The poison just caused him to have indigestion problems, gave him gas, okay? And so Felix is freaking out. He leaves the room. The other guys are on the other side of this door and says, like, did it work? Did it work? No, it didn't. Well, what are we going to do? So Felix has a backup plan. He has a revolver. So he walks back inside the room and he sees Rasputin staring at the wall at a painting and a cross, a big golden cross, okay? Now, so... like I said, they're waiting for him to drop dead from the poison. They don't. So while Rasputin is looking at the golden cross hanging on the wall, Felix pulls out his pistol. You can see a replica of it right there. And he shoots Rasputin in the back. Okay? I believe he shoots him twice in the back. And this is crazy because he falls down. Felix thinks he's dead. Felix doesn't check the body. He just runs out and says, "I shot him, guys. I killed him. He's dead. He's dead." And so Felix comes back into the room now, and he bends down and he checks the coat. So this was the escape plan, all right? The idea was to have one of those 4 guys put on the overcoat, put on Rasputin's overcoat and boots, go out to the car and drive home, be very loud, make sure that the neighbors see Rasputin, or at least someone dressed up as Rasputin, leave and go back to his house. And they will get rid of the body by throwing it into the river. That's kind of the plan. So Felix walks up to the body. Now, mind you, one of these bullets, I didn't mention this part, one of these bullets not only hit him in the back, but also hit him in the heart, where his heart should be. So Felix now goes and inspects the body. He freaks out. He bends down. He puts his 2 fingers onto the neck of Rasputin to check for a pulse. Suddenly, Rasputin's eyes open. You can imagine Felix falls backwards, okay? He's freaking out. He probably had to change his pants. Get the brown pants, Jaden. And this is crazy. Because Rasputin's heart, there's like about 2% of the human population, their heart is not right under the left side of their chest. It's kind of more slightly to the center. It's very, very rare, but it does happen for human beings. Rasputin was one of these people, okay? His heart wasn't directly on his left side. It was slightly more to the center. And so he didn't actually get shot in the heart. He just got shot where his heart should have been, okay? Anyways, Rasputin wakes up. He lunges at Felix. Felix is freaking out, okay? They struggle. Felix later says that he had a devil look in his eyes, okay? Felix terrifies. He falls down. Rasputin gets the upper hand. He's holding his wounds, the bullet hole wounds, and he starts making his way back upstairs. He's dripping blood onto the carpet, onto the floor, and still this guy will not die. He's making his way to the door. Now, of the 4 accomplices, the one guy is already dressed up in his clothes, and the other 2 guys are upstairs waiting for him to go and check on the body. So, lo and behold, those 3 are outside waiting when not Felix, but Rasputin comes out the door. And they are freaked out because they've been told the guy's been shot. He's been poisoned, and he's still not dead. It is insane. Now, when that happens, these 3 guys, they rush and they attack him, okay? Pershkov, the one politician, he's going to pull out his pistol and he's going to shoot Rasputin again. All right? He's still not dead. So they had clubs. They had trebuchons, okay? You can see like the police officer clubs, like you see in like the old movies, okay? Police batons, and they beat him, and so they beat him with their clubs, and they render him unconscious. So this guy has been shot now a total of 3 or 4 times by 2 different kinds of guns. He's been poisoned. He's been beaten by 3 other guys. And all he is freaking unconscious. He's still not dead. He's breathing. So they go downstairs. Now this part of the story varies a little bit. They get a rug or a sack, some kind of large cloth carpet, something, okay? It's not quite sure. They tie him up. They wrap him up in this blanket, carpet, sack, whatever version of the story it is that you're listening to. And they take Rasputin back to the palace, or at least heading in that direction. There's a river, okay? It's flowing. It's the Neva River. It's frozen on the surface, but people go ice fishing, right? So they cut holes in the ice so they can go ice fishing. So while the 4th guy is dressed up like Rasputin, he gets in his car and he drives back to Rasputin's house near the palace. The other 3 go to that ice hole where the ice fishers are, and they toss Rasputin into the water. Okay, the fishing hole. It's the middle of night, so there's no one fishing there, and they throw him into that fishing hole. So now Rasputin is under the water with about a frozen, December cold, probably freezing water. The only reason why it's not completely frozen, why only the surface is frozen, but the underneath part of the water is not frozen, is because it's moving. Anyways, Rasputin, he gets out of the chains, he gets himself out of the sack or rug or whatever he had been in, and he's still not dead, okay? And I'll tell you what actually killed him here in a second. So let's recap. He's been beat, he's been shot several times, he's been poisoned, and he's still not dead. And so, okay, so, where's it at? Okay, well, I don't see it in the next slide, so I'll just tell you. So, about 3 days later, Rasputin's body is found, okay? Rasputin's body, he had untied himself, like I said, from the ropes. He got out of the sack, and when they took the body to a doctor who did an autopsy on it, they found that Rasputin's fingernails had been cut, like sharpened, like worn down, like his fingernails were nearly gone. And so what that told the doctor is that when Rasputin had escaped from the ice, he was clawing his way as vigorously as he could to try and break the ice and get through the ice, but he couldn't. You can only hold your breath like 3 to 5 minutes, and that's finally what killed him. He was in frozen cold water, and the thing that finally killed him was just asphyxiation. He couldn't breathe anymore. It's insane. And he tried to claw his way out of the ice and escape, but he couldn't. All right? So, thrown in frozen cold water didn't make a difference. Poison didn't matter. Shot several times. Beaten with clubs. And finally he dies just because he has no more oxygen. That is the definition of ridiculous. If you ever talk about a guy who's alive in modern times who was probably demon possessed, yeah, Rasputin, okay? Now, Rasputin, before he died, he had given all kinds of military advice telling Nicholas how he could win the battles of World War I. I had a vision from God or whatever, and he told me in this vision, if you go out and do these strategies, you're going to win the battle in World War I. Well, Nicholas followed his advice. He went out to the battlefield, and he got his butt kicked. It was terrible loss. It was an embarrassment for Russia. The Germans just kicked their butts. It was insane. So much so that literally Russia had to leave World War I early, okay? The war ended about a year after Russia left. The reason why Russia left a year early is because they had suffered so many defeats. Fortunately for the Allies, like Britain and France and Italy, America entered the war. We filled that void in the final year, and we'll talk about that when we get to World War I. But so that last year of the war, when Russia basically said, all right, we quit, we're done, America came in, stepped in, and saved the day, just like in World War II. Freaking French can't do their own job. Anyways, so he is embarrassed. He's lost. The nobles now have no confidence in Nicholas to lead the battles. The losses for the Russians were staggering. One defeat after another. And so again, the Russians are just going to leave by 1917, one whole year earlier than when the war actually ended. Crazy. So now the peasants, obviously, they're the soldiers who are getting killed. The nobles, who are the officers, who are giving orders to the peasants about being killed, they're getting their orders from Nicholas. So you can imagine, rich and poor are both now ticked off at the Romanovs. It was huge. So there was a huge public outcry. And so what happens is he abdicates the throne on March 17th. Abdicate the throne means he resigns. He basically quits being king. He's impeached, if you want to use a president term. He quits. And so what's going to happen in this power vacuum, the Bolsheviks, the communists in 1917 are going to take power, and we've talked about this, right? The communist, the single most important event of the 20th century is the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. The second most important event is probably the Russians taking over, or the communists taking over Russia, rather, because that is going to cause all kinds of trouble. Every other major event of the 20th century, the 1900s, all stems from this idiot here, Lenin, bringing communism to Russia. He's going to basically, on July 17th, 1918, he's going to take the royal family, who were basically living in house arrest. They're going to take him down to the basement. The royal family down, all 4 daughters, the son, the wife, the husband, and they're going to pull out their machine guns, and they're going to slaughter them with machine guns. And afterwards, where you can see all the bullet holes are, this is going to become a popular tourist place for communists. A lot of communists are going to come here and get their pictures taken. This is like you and I going to Ford's Theater or to the Washington Monument or Lincoln Memorial and taking our pictures. This was like the place where the communists loved to come, where the Russians died. They took the bodies of the Romanovs out to a middle of the nowhere field and buried them. They finally found the bodies, actually, in the 1970s. Now, there had been a story, I'd mentioned Anastasia several times. There was a story that was floating around Russia for decades that the mother had shielded the youngest daughter with her body, and so none of the bullets killed Anastasia. Anastasia just pretended to be dead. And when the random, guard who had been assigned to bury the royal family discovered that the youngest girl was still alive, he had helped her to escape. Okay, and so for the last 70, 80 years, there were rumors that little Anastasia had survived. They even made a little Disney movie about it. All right, well, that's not what happened. She died. Bullets killed her. She was buried with her family, and I'll show you what Anastasia looks like, okay? Again, the myths, the legends, they made a Disney movie or something about it. Well, there's Anastasia, or at least what's left of her. It's gruesome, but hey, they're communists. They're evil. When have you ever known communists to be good, all right? So Rasputin, let's get back to him for a second. After ruling for 300 years, their dynasty had come to an end. Just the way that Rasputin had prophesied, sort of. He said that they would be destroyed within 6 months. It actually was about a little bit longer than that. He was half right. Anyways, it was about a year. They were murdered, 19 months, after his own assassination. So, was he channeling spirits? Probably. Like demonically possessed? Was he a lucky charlatan or a fake, or was it all a hoax? All of those are possible. But if you want my personal opinion, if there was ever a guy who was demonically possessed, like how you see in the Bible, in the book of Acts, when those people were like predicting demonically possessed people were, having strength and nothing could hurt them, and like slightly prophesying and making future predictions, like all that stuff you have read, hopefully, in the book of Acts. Yeah, Rasputin's probably the modern day example of that. Crazy and creepy as all get out, all right? So that is the end of our first PowerPoint. I hope you liked it. I'm going to post a quiz on Seesaw on Tuesday, so take notes on this or watch it again. I don't care. Anyways, have a great day, and just like old times, right? God bless. Bye, guys.